What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of While Supplies Last, the marketing podcast where we explore all things business and marketing. I'm Matt Nelson, one of your hosts, owner and founder of Peachtree Rose Marketing here in San Antonio, where we use modern marketing tactics like content marketing through video podcasting, search engine optimization, and social media management to help small to mid-sized businesses scale. Last episode of the podcast, we got in depth on video podcasting as one of the best multi-purpose marketing mediums for businesses to leverage in building parasocial relationships with an audience and showcasing their brands as empathetic authority figures in their industry. If you missed it, be sure and tune in after watching this episode. As always, we appreciate your comments and suggestions on what you want to hear from marketing experts in our industry. If you haven't already, smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe and share. Today, we'll be discussing the future of digital marketing and how even small businesses can leverage modern marketing tactics that tip the scales against larger corporations and big box marketing budgets. Today, I am honored to interview two gentlemen from the Uproot Agency, a dynamic digital marketing firm out of Cibolo, Texas that specializes in helping businesses increase sales and customer engagement through cutting-edge marketing strategies like search engine optimization, social media marketing, and targeted advertising. I'd like to first introduce Mr. DeAndre Lay, founder and CEO of the Uproot Agency. DeAndre brings a wealth of experience and a deep passion for combining his strong Christian values with innovative digital marketing strategies. As a leader dedicated to industry and community impact, he's here to share his journey and insights into growing businesses through strategic marketing. DeAndre, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have you. Where can folks connect with you online?
First of all, it's a pleasure, Matt, and thank you for having us, the Uproot Agency, here on your podcast. You can find me on LinkedIn at DeAndre Lay, and on Instagram is the Uproot Agency, all one word, and on Facebook, the Uproot Agency, just the Uproot Agency. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Also in the studio, I have the privilege of introducing Mr. Dramonte Dro Montgomery, Chief Operating Officer of the Uproot Agency. With over a decade of experience in marketing and a proven track record of driving millions of dollars in online sales, Dramonte is an expert in transforming businesses through digital marketing. His entrepreneurial spirit and mentorship have empowered countless small businesses and small business owners to achieve sustainable growth. Dramonte, welcome to the show. Where can folks connect with you online?
Thank you. People can connect with me on LinkedIn, pretty much the only place that I exist on, and it'll be my full name, lots of letters, but Dramonte Montgomery on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you so much, sir. Welcome aboard. So today, folks, we are going to get into some of the nuggets for 2025 that will drive business growth from a marketing perspective. So whether or not you're a small business owner in the Cibolo or San Antonio area, or if you're a marketing firm looking to capitalize on some of the best practices, tune in. We've got a lot of information to go over. But before we get in depth, I'd be remiss if I didn't open this up a little bit more and explore the Uproot Agency as an organization and individually. I know we're all entrepreneurs here. I'd love to unpack some of that. So first, DeAndre, if you wouldn't mind, let's hear a little bit about your brand story, your origin story, and what led you to creating the Uproot Agency.
Definitely. I appreciate that. So been born and raised here in San Antonio, Texas. Never lived anywhere else, but traveled abroad and visited other places. What brought me into the marketing space, entrepreneurial space in general, was, believe it or not, from a YouTube ad. Right, so you know how YouTube ads go. Under the video, they have the banners, and they kind of have the creative within there. The creative said, officeless agency, work from anywhere. And through there, it caught my interest. It was my day off. I'm just chilling on the couch on my phone watching YouTube. I click on it, went through a couple more windows to actually get some more information. I even paid a couple fees to get some more information until finally it was dawned upon me that the industry was digital marketing. And then through there, it was like a financial education course to where they had a set amount of modules. It was like a masterclass thing to where they teach you from opening up your LLC all the way up until learning everything that you need to know about running a digital marketing agency. Not going to say I followed everything in that module. I probably got halfway through it. And from there, learned enough to where I was able to go ahead and start up the basics as far as my own website, my own online platforms as far as Instagram and Facebook at the time. And then also I learned a little ways of how I can actually help clients grow their businesses as far as running ads and doing SEO tactics. And from there, I would say a year in 2022 after doing that, because I founded this in 2021, the Uproot Agency, along came my COO, Dro, who actually knows what he's doing in this space. He went to UC Davis for this. And from there on, it scaled to a point to where I wouldn't even see fit. I actually was going to work trying to fund everything for this business, trying to make it work, because at the end of the day, I always wanted something for myself, something to call my own and to eventually maybe pass down to my children if they so choose to take it over. And man, Dro took it to a height that I would have never thought possible.
Nice.
And so from then on, not only learning the business through different clients and partners that we meet, along with yourself, he teaches me a lot of knowledge that I wouldn't even expect to ever grasp, easily grasp the way I would have through a video module or a masterclass. And he made it all make sense. So yeah, that's where we've been. And then from 2024 onward is really when things started to propel itself forward. I put my 100% all into this, and with two heads working into this, along came with our team full of brand strategists, business consultants, SEO experts, and VAs. And from then on, I've just been along for the ride.
Very cool, man. I feel like so our marketing company, we're a little bit younger, I guess. Y'all started about a year prior to us, but entrepreneurially, I've had other businesses that led me down this journey. I would agree that you learn a lot more after you start, and every time you take on a client, especially in a new industry, it's always a learning opportunity. You can use some of the same best practices and just kind of parallel them in an industry, and it's really fun to watch that work. So that's pretty cool.
Yes,
but great segue as well. I also have the privilege here in the studio as well, Mr. Dramonte Montgomery, so Chief Operating Officer, which is a cool dynamic as a business. Let's unpack a little bit of your brand story and talk about what led you into finally getting to the Uproot Agency.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. So I started digital marketing, or you know what? Let's even go farther back, because I wouldn't say that marketing's necessarily a passion. I would clarify my passion as driving revenue. So people are like, oh, you're a marketer. I'm like, I'm a growth strategist. That's primarily what I do, and I grow your business through marketing. And so I've always been a young entrepreneur. You always hear about the kids that are selling candy. That was me. I was a kid that, went around knocking on doors, trying to walk people's dogs. And as I got older, I found other things that people would want to do or that they needed done that I could do. So, I was tutoring, doing a whole bunch of things. And then about 11 years ago, right, because we're in 2024, so 11 years ago, I had the opportunity to do what is now online reputation management and social media management for the LASIK Vision Institute. Mm-hmm. So they were the first business that I ever worked with. I honestly didn't know anything that I was doing. It was the fact of the matter was I was young. And they wanted accounts. They didn't have any accounts, no Yelps, no Facebook, no Instagram, none of that stuff. So I went and did their first accounts. And after doing that, I was getting reviews for them, posting for them, replying to comments, all of that good stuff. And then from there on, I was like, I can make money. Like, I can do this for other people. So I just, as I'm meeting people and figuring things out and finding people's passions, because that was the easiest way to make money, was be like, oh, this is your passion, this is your side hustle, you care a lot. That's a salesman in me. It's like, you care a lot, I can help you.
Yeah.
And so that just led to, I've worked with different agencies as a freelancer, as a contractor. I've gotten to work on some pretty big projects in Texas, all over the country. Some of them were outside of the country as well. And so then pretty much in, like DeAndre said, 2022, I didn't know that was the year. I thought it was way before that. But I don't have a good time, what do you call that? Time reference. But so then 2022, when DeAndre and I linked up, He introduced to me something that I didn't know, actually. I had the skill set for a lot of these things. I knew a lot of people that had the skill set. They were experts. I didn't know that there were words for them. And a lot of people are like, well, what does that mean? It's like, well, I know how to, like, people are like, oh, can you get me ranked on Google? Yes, cool. Yeah, we can do that. DeAndre was like, yeah, so we're doing SEO. I'm like, I don't know what that is.
Oh, that's ranking on Google.
Yeah. And so we even have like an internal thing that's like, drop the vocab, just tell me what you're doing.
Yeah.
But yes, that's pretty much my story. I just love to drive revenue. I like to be disruptive, and I love to create money. And I realized that the best way, it may not be the best for everybody, but the best way for myself to create money is to help others put money in their pocket.
Nice.
So that's me.
Very cool. Very cool. Man, that's a cool origin story for the company, but an interesting dynamic. So I don't have, the title of CEO, and I don't necessarily have a COO on the team. I guess you could combine Gabby and Candace from our team as the marketing manager and the project manager, and they're kind of a COO role. But it reminds me of, there's a book, Traction by Gino Wickman. It's a business book, but he talks about the role of a visionary and an integrator, and how interchangeably in terms of titles, it's basically a CEO and a COO, and how in business it's such a necessity to have both facets of that. So it's kind of cool operationally and visionary wise to see that, as a dynamic between you two. How long have you all known each other?
Let's see. So I'm 26. I'll be 27 next year. So 26 years I've known him.
Oh yeah. Way back then. Okay, cool.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, we're cousins. We've known each other our whole entire lives. Best friends and cousins.
Right on. That adds to the dynamic. That's
Yeah.
cool. And I'm sure you probably got some stories of friction. We'll save those. But at the end of the day, y'all probably are a lot better at communicating with each other because y'all know each other's communication styles probably better than most other CEOs and COOs who have either been hired on or have, come into the fray through business. So that's pretty cool.
I'd like to think so, too.
Yeah, right on. So one of the things that I found when I was researching the Uproot Agency, because it's important to me, we haven't necessarily done it to the extent that I'd like to in terms of really getting community impact. I think one of the things we have in the hopper is SanAntonioPodcasting.com. I have a lot of designs and plans on, intertwining nonprofits into that effort, but I'd love to know from a fellow marketing agency that's local, what your experiences are in terms of community impact.
Definitely. Community impact to us is really the biggest thing that you can do, especially with you staying in the same area. Of course, abroad and everywhere else, domestic, communities are changed, whether you're living there or not, if you're the one helping them out or adopting them as clients. But for us here in San Antonio, a big one that I love is actually one of my good friends, nonprofits. He has two, really one, Royal Readings LLC. It's a publishing company that he had. He wrote a children's book. Him and his mother co-authored. It's called Moose's Golden Voyage, and it was really teaching about children learning, specifically Black and brown children, learning their place in life, really, because it's not a lot of history that you see around with Black children in general. And it's about Mansa Musa, one of the richest Black people in Africa. Just how his rise and I wouldn't say fall, but I guess journey through life, how he was able to help a whole country, a whole continent at his beck and call. And with them being right next door to me, growing up with the guy, his name is Kareem Muhammad, us being able to help him out, build his website, and actually get him further is one of the big things. He does most of his community work in New Orleans, Louisiana. That's where he originates from. And seeing what he does from school drives to community outreach through food giveaways and food drives, it's just something that we've really been proud to be a part of. And it's just been a blessing. It's really different when you know the executive director personally, and it's just, man, it's just one of those things that mesh together perfectly. It's just the synergy is just goes without saying. It's right there.
It's almost an indescribable feeling
It-
to me when you've
exactly what I
got a
struggle with.
connection with like a client where it's that good of a connection and you're just so morphed together as, you're just hip and you're on the same page. And it takes, you talked about sales, and kind of that journey. At the end of the day, it's not sales to me. It doesn't have to feel salesy if you really believe in what you're doing and you're aligned with that vision. And I think sometimes it takes a while to get there in the client-provider relationship. But once you get there, man, it's something beautiful. So that's cool.
Yeah, it just takes off. Yeah.
Right on.
And even to tag along with that with Peachtree's Rose, I actually want to thank Frank Harris for dragging me along to the back with him while
Right
you
on.
were showing him around because, I wouldn't know if I was able to even connect with you at that point with me at the networking event here at VentureX. So I wanted to give that quick shout out too. So thank you, Frank.
There you go, Frank.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, who are tuning in for the first time, we're here, Peachtree Rose Marketing. We're housed in a co-working space, VentureX San Antonio Northwest, or SA Co-work. And the last Thursday of every month, they put on a huge networking event that's free for everybody in the community here in San Antonio. And that's how DeAndre and myself, we connected. He was one of the guests at the networking event. So that's pretty cool. How about from your perspective, Tremonti, community, outreach, community impact? Any thoughts there?
So as I said, 26 years, but I'm 26 years old, but I started at a young age. So I'm really adamant, if that's the correct word, about young people doing things. So we actually linked up with SOS, Students of Service, right? Yeah, Students of Service San Antonio. And they're always inviting us out to events. We've been to two or one? One? Yeah. But the first event we went to was like a speed mentoring. We had like 3-day notice. The two of us showed up. Our other business partner, Ant, showed up. And we were able to mentor these kids. I believe they were from 14 to 18. And they all came by choice. They all were looking for career paths, and they all had questions.
Wow.
And some of them wanted to, do like college jobs. Some of them wanted to be business owners. Some of them they didn't know what they wanted to do. And then so for me, when I started at 15 years old, I was a weirdo. Like over here trying to work, trying to make money. I was a weirdo. But to see other kids that were like, yeah, this is something I want to do. I want to pursue these things.
Nice.
And then even one of the kids, Calvin, I will not forget his name. This was like 6 months ago, but I won't forget his name. His dad owns a flooring company. Calvin sat there for extra time, and he was like, yeah, my dad owns a flooring company. I think we should do Facebook ads. I think we should do this, that. I'm like, are you going to inherit the business? I was like, because you have the right mindset, and this is what I like to see. And then so it's cool because it's San Antonio, so, nice community. So that's something that I really like. And then they support the youth. I feel like kids these days, especially with social media, they believe that there's only a certain way to do certain things or that they have to take a certain path. And I'm all for people asking questions, especially when they're impressionable and they haven't even started yet and they have so much time.
Very cool. And that was Students of Service San Antonio.
Yeah, because I think
Okay.
they're national.
They're
but
global.
Yeah.
Actually.
Oh, yeah, they
Students
are
of
global.
Service, and it's just the San Antonio, I guess,
Chapter.
branch chapter. Okay, cool. Very cool. Yeah. And it's very, very cool of you to name drop, giving some brand awareness on this podcast as well. So we'll link to their stuff as well in the show notes. Awesome. Very cool. But yeah, so what's that? You talked about community impact, but there's also some involvement there with some client relationships, and from a marketing perspective, that makes me want to kind of transition into asking about case studies. You don't have to necessarily name drop, but if you can talk about any case studies where you did something that was potentially unique from a marketing perspective, or a strategy that you took for a client that resulted in something remarkable for that client. I would love to hear that.
PR?
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm going. Especially because we're talking about helping the community, right?
Yeah.
However, this isn't to San Antonio, but through the Uproot Agency and networking, I started working with a nonprofit, Project Run Madera, out in California. And now, not only do I work with them, but we're friends. We're friends. But what they do is they help track athletes. They buy them shoes, shorts, shirts, and for the girls, sports bras. story is crazy of why. I won't really get into that, but the founder of it, she didn't grow up super affluent, but she was able to get into AAU track, a college scholarship. She ran professional track, and this was all because her coaches, her community was buying her stuff. So then when she came back, she was like, I'm going to create something for that. And so after being introduced to her to help her out, I think her nonprofit had been going for maybe 2 or 3 years, somewhere around in there. And so I met her. We started implementing some systems. We even got her on ABC in California, actually.
Nice.
Started implementing some systems. Like, hey, who can you talk to? Just asking all the right questions so we could get a good marketing strategy. And maybe if you really want to call it that, maybe like a PR strategy. And so we designed her a new website. So her new website could take donations with less of a fee. We can also reassign the fee if we want. So a website where she can take donations all the time. She can do reoccurring, right? She can do one time. They can do their own amount for the donation. And then there's preset amounts. So there's no reason, it's like, oh, well, I don't want to donate that. Type in how much you want to do. I don't want to do reoccurring. You can do it one time. There's no excuse to not miss any of this. And then we also set them up with what do you call that nowadays? A print on demand. Even though I said I don't do vocab, I was trying to make it easy. With a print-on-demand store also to the website so she could garner more donations as well because, some people, they want something tangible. So some people are like, man, I really want to donate. And they're not a bad person for this, right? But some people want to donate, but they're like, I'm just going to give the money and all I get in return is a good feeling. Well, so you can get a hoodie, you can go get some slides or whatever products we have available at the time because those are all going to donations, right? So implementing these systems, giving her more outreach. We've known each other. It's November 2024. I met her September, October 2023. And from then to now, she's actually about to have her biggest fundraising event in February. But from then to now, we've actually helped fund her over $100,000 in less than a year. And that is about 3 to 4 times more than she made in the 2 to 3 years total, like combined.
Very cool.
So we pretty much just optimized everything. And then it even goes beyond marketing, because, again, I'm sales, operations. I like making money. I also like saving money.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, this is your vendor. Can we talk with them? Especially Ant. Wish he was here for that. Ant's known because he'll just call and be like, hey, we need this discount. It's a charity. It's a nonprofit. And then working with them, we've also been able to link them up with like Olympians and stuff. So we have Andrew Hudson. He ran in this past Olympics for Jamaica. Good friend of ours. Went to Cibolo Steel. We connected him with the charity, and then obviously he knows other people. So it's blowing up. I'm really excited to see where this goes over the next 3 years. But yeah, that's something really remarkable that we've done for somebody, and it just makes me feel fantastic, to be honest, too.
That's very cool, and there's a lot to unpack in that. And so it sounds like I'm hearing a lot of that was not just the marketing piece, but the business optimization, which is kind of cool. How did you approach, as a brand or as a company, how did you first start to triage that or dissect, them as a business or as a nonprofit in being able to say, okay, here's where we can go with that? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So it originally started when, so I guess we will get into this. So the founder or executive director of Project Run Madera, her name's Alicia Brown. So when I was talking with her and she was explaining to me her story, and I was like, man, this is so good. This sounds like a documentary. You should write a book. And then I heard my mentor in my head, why not you? And so I'm like, we need to tell your story because you only help out Madera, which is where she lives. And actually now this year, for the first time ever, we're actually expanding it to surrounding schools in California because she made enough money to help other people. But so it was like, okay, so people in Madera know your story. Can we get other people outside of Madera to know your story, especially if we can put you in the same room as Olympians and things like that? And because she's only focused on track, that's the only sport she does. And so when we were looking at that, and I was like, this is heartwarming. This is heartfelt. I'm not the type of person that gets sold on emotion. People are going to want to do this. They just don't know. So once I was able to get her to say that and explain all these things to me and how she wants to run things, I was like, you have an amazing vision, like chief visionary for sure. And so what we looked at doing was, like you just said, optimizing every single thing she was doing. So you have a website. Yep. You take donations on your website, right? Yep. And I don't remember what her fee was, but it was super high. So we found something that was cheaper than that. And then I'm like, okay, well, do you advertise your website? No. You post on socials? Sometimes. Do you wear, because they have merch, do you wear your merch? So it's things like that just to really get the story out more. And I'm hoping that's answering your question. But
Yeah, no, absolutely.
it was everything that we could do to get her story out more. And then even more so to even get the kids' stories out more. Like, it actually kind of makes me feel some type of way. But because as I'm saying now, like something we've even looked at is, so she does gear drops for like the kids. Like once we've bought all the clothes and stuff, she pulls up to the schools and gives it to the teams and stuff. We did a survey after that. So almost every single kid that got clothes did a survey. And to see some of the kids saying like, my parents couldn't afford this, or I wouldn't be able to run. It's, and I hate saying this because it's a nonprofit, but when it's business, that sells itself.
Yeah.
So it was just more of letting more people know that things were happening and even getting that data. You know what I'm saying? Like creating that survey, getting those answers, posting those. And actually that put her in the running to be one of the top nonprofits in California last year or this year. But
Very cool. And that's a good segue for a question that I had, because, again, I started a translation business in 2013 that led me down the marketing path. But when I got into marketing, one of the things, because you're really a business consultant at the end of the day, one of the things that I realized was at the end of the day, we have to kind of show our work and show our worth as well. You can provide so much exceptional value to a business or a brand and bring in a lot more revenue. But unless you're attributing it in terms of marketing dollars to something that you've done, you might lose the client, along the way. That survey is a kind of a cool way of, gauging impact, which I think is super cool, outside of just the tangible dollars and cents aspect of things. Can either of y'all, kind of talk about, from a measurability standpoint, how you measure success for any given client?
yeah.
Yeah, I would say measurement would be whatever your goals and your intentions are with the efforts and services that we offer. So whether that just be pure engagement, pure impressions, we can do that for you. And whether that be actual conversions and revenue being made for your business, we'll try our best to do that for you. Of course, in marketing, there's no promises, right?
Yep.
But we do our best to actually go ahead and deliver on our end. So I would say the most important thing is to start off real, tell them straight up, black and white, this is what we're going to be doing. This is how we expect it to work. Not saying that this is going to actually happen, but this is our goals and this is the numbers that we're trying to reach. If you agree with it, we're going to go ahead and pull the trigger and go forward. Whether that work, like let's say for a month campaign, whether that work talks for itself or not, usually it's up to them when they want to go ahead and try off for another campaign. And that usually does happen because it's not only about the results that they get, it's the advice and the input that we're giving them. Because usually with business owners and other entrepreneurs, they're not really familiar with what all goes into marketing.
Yeah.
And talking to us, it's like your best friend knowing everything, and then we're telling it to you. So we're really putting everything in layman's terms, and they feel most comfortable with that, which therefore it gives us the trust and respect that from them to be able to move forward along. So
I feel like a lot of times it's translation at the end of the day. Whether or not you're
really is
business concepts, you're dealing with left brain stuff and you're having to work with a bunch of creatives and you're, having to translate that to right brain, or you're just working with either a fellow or any kind of a visionary and translating their vision to, actual marketing tactics that will work for them. So I think based on what you're talking about, and something that we've dealt with is really gauging off of that first meeting with a client or with a prospect at this point, right? And feeling whether or not their vision is executable and whether or not it's, actually something that you can follow through on their behalf on, if it's one of those pie in the sky things, or even, I feel like we've dealt with that. I'm sure you have as well as a marketing firm. A prospect may have an idea of what they need, but it's not necessarily what's going to work for driving online sales or conversions or anything like that.
totally
Yeah.
totally
Cool.
yeah
100% on that too. That's why he's laughing because as we said before we turned the cameras on, I'm a listener. I'm a listener. I ask questions. My mentor, he's the one that pretty much shapes a lot of my thinking. And my first conversation ever with him actually had to do with working with athletes. And he was like, don't work with anybody unless they can answer a couple of questions. And one of those questions is, how do you define success? And so I was like, okay. And I was like, you want me to answer it? He goes, yeah. And so I was like, I want to be rich. And he was like, why? And he was like, and how much? And I was like, 300 million. He's like, what do you plan on doing with that 300 million? And he was like, if they can't answer these questions as you keep going, you probably shouldn't work with them because the vision isn't all the way there and there's going to be miscommunication, but it's not a miscommunication. It's a lack of communication. So I think it's really important to work backwards for some people. So like, what's your goal? Every business owner's goal is to get more money, more customers. How much? To do what? Is this going to translate to something else? Because also that helps us shape the strategy too. But yeah, that was just, I really had to say that because there are definitely times where what people say they want isn't what they need.
Yeah.
Which is a very big part of like when I don't want to say our pitch, but when we're talking to people, it's like, yeah, just take a meeting with us. That way we can figure out what you want and then what you need. And all people are like, you can kind of see sometimes like, what? And like, no, well, there's a difference, But I think it's very important to always just work backwards.
Yeah, and I start with why. Another book, Simon Sinek, I think is a great one. But understanding out of the why, getting really down into the weeds and understanding what that means for the business owner. And I think that's what produces results that are tangible, as opposed to throwing spaghetti at the wall or throwing advertising dollars at something without even understanding who the target audience is.
Start with why is the title of the book.
Yeah, Simon Sinek. He's a big business author. He's got a lot of stuff that in terms of
The Infinite
overall
Game,
business. Right? I think that might be one of his as well. He's got quite a few. But Start With Why is one of his. One that I like from the leadership realm because he does a lot of leadership books too. Is Leaders Eat Last. That was a good one.
Man. That's powerful.
But you were saying that, and I was like, start with why. Simon Sinek. But on that, talking with, prospects and getting into client stuff, we're in 2025 basically at this point. The game is getting changed for a few things. At the same time, human behavior is the same, and, people behave and are compelled to take action on certain things. What trends do y'all see as a fellow marketing agency that small businesses can leverage to really gain traction and growth in 2025?
You want to go with me?
I'll say AI. And I know that's pretty much what everybody's thinking, but everybody's thinking it because it's true. Success leaves clues, right? So I think AI for small businesses will do a lot of things. And it really doesn't even matter specifically what you're trying to do because you can just go to ChatGPT. Any problem that you're having, it's not that ChatGPT will solve it, but if you know the right things to say, it has the potential to solve it. And then obviously, if you're going to use AI, it's always helpful. So let's just stick to marketing, right? If you're using AI for marketing, it's very helpful if you have somebody like one of us three that will either look over it or see what you're doing. But I think AI will be a game changer. Not will be. It definitely is a game changer for most small businesses, especially when we want to talk about affordability.
Nice.
Yeah, I was actually going to piggyback on stuff like people want authenticity all the time. That's one thing that entrepreneurs and business owners come to us with. I want organic. I want authentic. I want to be able to drive people and customers to my stuff organically. So I was like, okay, cool. Well, do you know what that entails as far as you offering what? So that goes into the creatives. That goes into what do you have as creatives? Who do you want to make those creatives? And where do you want those creatives posted? Not all platforms is for every plan. It's people that want to do stuff on Meta where it's more viable and ease of access to do it on LinkedIn or vice versa, or maybe even YouTube in some sense. So it's just not knowing what you want, but what and where, where to put it, where to post it at. So it's definitely a lot of things to break down. But in that case, it's all about a conversation. Conversations and the right questions being asked that can actually get you down to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation last month with a fellow marketer, and one of the things that she brought up was, a concern. She's a younger marketer, and she was asking me, my thoughts on whether or not AI, artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, would eventually be the detriment of marketing, as a service. And I kind of laughed just like you did, but no was my obvious answer, right? Mm-hmm. I think at the end of the day, it will be a game changer for almost every industry. Think about the 1900s with how many horses there were, and then by 1920s, they were all replaced by cars, right? Mm-hmm. So you got a bunch of horse poop all over the roads everywhere, and an industry was changed, within just a short time period. And I think every century we have some sort of game-changing advancement, in terms of the human race that really changes industries. It will make people go broke, but it will also create a lot of opportunity. So I think in answer to her and kind of based on, the subject of AI, there's a lot of opportunity to leverage that, not just as a small business or a small business owner or mid-sized business, but also as a marketing firm and be able to capitalize on that. Just to get, and again, this is putting stuff out there. We don't gatekeep. We know that one of the biggest things as marketers we're able to do is provide solutions for entrepreneurs who are wearing multiple hats. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, they don't want to be a marketer. They want someone to execute that for them in a really good way. So we put, a lot of value out there. We also do, search engine optimization. A big part of that is on-page SEO. I have a preference, from web design and the SEO hat to focus more on on-page stuff you can control rather than just backlink building, traditional old school SEO. Mm-hmm. But one of the things in that is we do leverage ChatGPT as, a brainstorming session. Out of that, you do have to get into technical SEO on page, which is a skill set that's learned. I wanted to put out one of the methods that we used, and y'all might have heard of it. Y'all might use something similar. We use the craft method. So where you've kind of, let's say you want to do a blog article on a given subject, but you really lay up a nice prompt in ChatGPT. So for me, craft, it just kind of stands for context, where you're really telling ChatGPT or AI, hey, this is kind of the context of what's going on. It might be on that client or that website, that kind of a thing. You really tell ChatGPT, hey, I am this, right? And it might be I am that business owner or that brand. And then off of that craft method, role, you tell ChatGPT or AI what their role is. You are a marketing expert with 15 years of experience doing this. And you get very, very specific, right? Mm-hmm. And there's some nuances to that. And out of that, action, you tell ChatGPT what it's going to do, how it's going to write an article. You get into format. You tell it exactly, how you want the article to be laid out. One of the things that I do say is it's got to be an outline format, and then you've got to really fill it in from there because it's not good at, doing a full-length SEO article. Mm-hmm. And then after format, obviously target audience, who you're trying to speak to through that blog article. I've used that. Some of my team has used that in terms of on-page SEO stuff. And again, with a lot of years of experience with technical on-page SEO and actually getting into that, but it's a great guideline that expedites the blog writing process through an SEO lens. But I don't know, how do y'all leverage AI and what y'all do as marketers?
It's very similar to that. I really like that. You took my mindset and put it into a
definition. Yeah.
And I like that a lot. Because I tell people the same thing, like we'll just talk about ChatGPT, right? Actually, I'll tell you an exact conversation I had with somebody 2 months ago. I believe they were a roofing and restoration. They said, well, what stops me from just using AI to do everything that you're telling me or looking everything up and doing it myself? And I was like, well, for the second one, you don't have time. You're a business owner. You straight don't have, you have a staff, you have a physical location, a brick and mortar. You actually have 2 or 3 locations. So I know you don't have the time.
Yep.
Now, what's stopping you from using AI is the same thing that's stopping me from building a roof after I Google it. I can give you all the tools, but it's not gonna. And actually, I could build a roof, but because I worked in roofing. But
I'm about to unscrew this Shure SMB mic and drop it. Yes, it's what stops me from going into roofing. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's like it's a tool. You know what I'm saying? And most people have toolboxes, but sometimes you still need to call a plumber. You still need to call a roofer. So we use it as a tool, and we use it as a time saver. Especially me, I'm always thinking like constantly. My brain does not stop. So I could literally be sitting here developing a strategy, and now I'm nitpicking every idea in my head when I could have just wrote it all out into a prompt. Boom, here you go, ChatGPT or whatever we're using right now. And let's see if we can make this into a logical format. If I'm going to combat it, at least I'm not combating myself. Because when you combat yourself, you're just going to spend so much time and you don't even realize that the time is going.
Yeah.
So we really use it as an efficiency tool, mainly.
Nice. Yeah. Very good. Yeah, and to that, even talking about the craft method, which that's not something Peachtree owns, by the way. I found that somewhere on YouTube and just kind of ran with it. I built my own prompt out of it that I use all the time. To its detriment, if you're not an AI operator, which I'll title, if you're not somebody who's used to that and you don't know how to really frame it up well, it's missing some context there. And one of the things that AI is not great at still is validation of truth or just bias content that is either already in AI databases or even in real time what's just existing out there in terms of content. There's a lot you can do to mitigate that with the right steps. I was consulting with another podcast who was trying to leverage a copywriter, right? Someone who has a skill set for writing good copy, but not necessarily an SEO expert. And they were trying to leverage AI to create show notes, right, for like a description in YouTube, just based on the transcript. They would basically say, hey, here's the transcript for this whole podcast episode. Now optimize it for SEO. And they told me that was their method. And I was like, and what results did you get out of that? And they're like, well, it did kind of bad because one of the actual speakers in the podcast, they gave them a different name for their first name as opposed to their actual name. It misspelled a couple of other names, proper nouns. So I really had to comb through and spend a lot of time. And then I was like, what kind of SEO results do you think it got you? And she was like, well, I don't know. And I was like, okay, well, there's some measurement issues in that, but you really didn't frame it up. You have to be able to define what that means for that particular brand or that context or that industry. So yeah, AI with some caveats, I would say. Yeah, that's a good one. Any other trends that y'all can think of in 2025 that, a small business owner, maybe before they ever consider, or maybe they're not at the point where they can justify the investment in working with a marketing firm like ours, what can they do in terms of marketing best practices to start to get some traction, build that momentum to where maybe they're that business owner with 1,000 hats. They want to be the business owner with one hat, and they want to be able to outsource or work with a professional firm eventually. What can they do to gain traction?
Just staying consistent, just consistent posting, like nonstop every day, something, whether it be a story, whether it be a reel, whether it be a post. Nowadays on Instagram, they have groups to where you can open up your own group to where followers can join in, and you're able to go ahead and gain knowledge and gain content through DMs because it pops up in DM format.
Nice.
Another good friend of mine, he sells bulldogs, the Bully Village. Shout out to Devin. He grown his business organically from 25,000 followers all the way up to upwards of 300,000.
Nice. Just
through consistent posting, a year nonstop, 366 days of nonstop posting. And that's what got him there. Of course, it's cute dogs sell themselves, right? So everybody loves to see cute dog and cat videos and stuff. So, it's just the quality that he used. He has the latest iPhone, right? Which is really all you need these days. You don't need a top-notch Canon camera or something like that. Just consistent posting, consistent videos, consistent content. Just something for people to see every day. That's honestly the best way to get you there. And sometimes it is the most work, sometimes you want something different to where if it isn't broke, don't fix it. just keep going. Just keep posting.
Nice.
Keep stay in their news feed, stay in their face.
So consistency.
Definitely. Yeah. Consistency.
And I've heard that from influencers and businesses that have just really, really skyrocketed. The one thing that got them there was just keeping true, right? Which as a small business owner can get super difficult, especially if you don't have revenue coming in, or if, I think you alluded to it as well. You had one foot in the door. I'm in the same boat where, you might have a full-time thing while you're also doing this thing.
Totally.
So that can be difficult. And again, that's one of the benefits of working with a firm or a professional organization that's able to get that consistency on your brand's behalf. So that's pretty good. Right on. Y'all have name dropped a couple of influencers. So I did have some questions. And, following this episode, the episode that's going to drop, we're going to have an interview with another influencer to get their insights. But I wanted to get y'all's take as a marketing company working with influencers. What are some of the best practices? How do you approach that? If you're working with somebody on behalf of a client, how does that work in y'all's, perspective?
I personally, and I'm biased, right? Because one, we work doing influencer marketing, but my brother was an influencer for a while. He was a bodybuilder influencer because he was also an IFBB pro. And so I was kind of like his manager. So I was like negotiating and doing his influencer partnerships and influencer deals. And throughout that, the one thing I learned, even though my brother, my client, I'm getting paid, there were companies that came to us and I'm like, why? You want to pay him how much? To show your product to people? He doesn't use it. He doesn't care for it. He's not going to talk about it. So when we're doing influencer partnerships, instead of finding somebody that has a bunch of followers in a certain space, we're going to look for somebody who actually applies. Somebody who not only would be an influencer, but a brand advocate from their heart, not from for the money, right? Because organic is always the best way to make money, right? But that's how you leverage their audience, which is the whole entire point.
Yeah.
Paying somebody who never uses your stuff, and not to say that the person always has to use your product, right? But there needs to be some form of alignment.
Even if it's just an alignment with a target audience, or maybe they fit the profile of that target audience. And obviously, if they at least vouch for the brand or the product, right?
And then, even when you talk about target audience, there's a lot of businesses out there that their target audience isn't who's paying their bills. And that's something that I think people need to discuss a lot, especially if you're going to do influencer marketing, right? Because, and let's just say you're going to go get a bodybuilder to push, like semaglutides or whatever. It's for weight loss. Why would he do that? Yeah, he has an audience of people, but the majority, especially my brother's case, the majority of people that are doing it, it's not going to line up. So in that case, if you're looking for weight loss, right, you're typically looking at women. And a certain age, right? I think it's like 35 plus. We'll just say 35 plus. That's not his audience. So why are you paying him for that? But I think there's important things. So that's how we look at it. Because I hate wasting money. I'm cheap. And so I don't want to waste somebody else's money on an influencer who made maybe a video quality thing, but it's not gonna equate to any return on investment.
Yeah. So that's a good segue to another question, because I know one of the things that the Uproot Agency, does in terms of a marketing medium is targeted advertising. Right, you've got some experience there. So what role does targeted advertising play in terms of reaching the right target audience or uncovering the right target audience? If anybody has any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would say that it's one, finding out who that is, but in the journey of finding out what that is and who that is through trial and error, just like how general marketing really is. You're really not going to know until you go back and review the analytics, review everything, and actually determine where, okay, let's go ahead and put our focus to this type of demographic. And then once that's found out, then again, trial and error, especially in the sense of SEO, right? We're pretty used to that months on end. So that's really the only holistic way to actually get that through, because Other than that, it's competitive research, like going through and looking at other people in your same industry, in their same industry as your client, and seeing what works for them and seeing what is, and not saying that we're cookie cutter, but actually adopting things that, okay, this is something that we can do. This is something that we can cut out. It's not really fit for us, or that's not something that they want to do, or this is a pretty good idea that we can go ahead and try to move forward with. So I would say those 2 points: just looking at your analytics, seeing where your strengths are, and also competitive research.
So, so looking at trends, but not chasing trends, and really chasing performance, which is where, competitive research, maybe not even in the same market.
Definitely.
Maybe in a parallel market, same demographics, same type of market, maybe a different geography.
Definitely.
Which might be really good performance there too, because it really can be, especially when we're talking, social. If your targeted ads are on social media, it could be the one variable. It could be that it's 1 second longer than another one, which is where that A/B testing in terms of performance comes from, which brings in point. It's not our bread and butter, but we do have some really good successful case studies where we've dealt with the social media engagement and paid ads piece. Social media, if you are a small business, it's not the Wild West anymore, and it does take a good effort to be able to master, but it's still very much a powerful resource that is still free for the most part. And that's where your A/B testing can really, come to bat for you before you're having to drop a lot of money on paid ads, I feel like. And for those of you joining us for the first time or whenever this drops, we're in a mix of something going on. And I failed to mention it earlier on in the podcast, but just yesterday, prior to this recording, a federal appeals court just upholded a law that will effectively, potentially either ban TikTok in the United States or force a hand to where, the Chinese company ByteDance will have to basically sell TikTok to a U.S. company by January 19th. And of course, this particular episode will have already dropped by then, so we'll see where it goes. But, that segue into social media and, paid ads, I think TikTok was one of the first platforms that, as opposed to really gauging off of your social circles and building audiences off of that and kind of morphing things, their algorithm was a lot more in tune to what a given individual liked, almost building a profile on that individual based on, their engagement with any type of, whether or not it's, dancing doctors on TikTok or really cute cats or practically porno, right? Just to put everything out there. But building a profile on an individual, and instead of leveraging, algorithmic stuff based on circles, social circles, just really based on interest. And I feel like other platforms like Meta, Facebook, Instagram, they've started to adopt more of that. Where do y'all see that going, and how could, before I ask that question, where do y'all see that particular thing going in terms of, leveraging algorithmic engagement based on profile and interest as opposed to social circles?
I hate the word personalization, but personalization and AI, I think are gonna, they will, 2025, we're going to see a lot of crazy things, especially now, because 2024, if we're talking about marketing, was the year of branding, right? So you're telling me now with AI and personalization, you can change your branding to fit certain people based on certain things, which makes them more likely to work with you? I think that's where we would be looking at, because, again, we live in the age, people don't want to feel like they're being sold to. Personalization, AI, we're having a conversation. I'm not selling you on anything. You like this, you want it. That's how I always hear marketing.
That's that big funnel, yeah.
And so that's really how I see a lot of things going in terms of personalization and focusing things toward the people instead of the algorithm. Because I think sometimes, I can say this, yeah. I think sometimes that your audience matters more than the algorithm. And that comes from, we don't know what we don't know. And also, if we're talking about content, well, if your audience likes the content, then what does it matter what the algorithm says, right? Because you don't make content for the algorithm. You shouldn't be making content for yourself. That's what a lot of business owners do. You should make content for the people that are gonna resonate with it.
Yeah.
So I know that was like a really long answer, but I think that's where we're headed. And I think we're gonna see a lot of unique things because there's a lot of tools out there. There's a lot of data. I don't know if we'll still have some of this personal data next year, but there's a lot of data that enables us to really personally target things and make changes on the drop of a dime or drop of a hat, whatever the saying is. Yeah. But
I know TikTok is poised to, try and appeal this, decision with Supreme Court. So we'll see what happens, by January 19th. I don't think they have to necessarily make a sale by then, but I think they're supposed to potentially, align with a potential buyer. Or face being banned. India, of course, as a country, one of the largest populations in the world, banned TikTok and use of TikTok completely. Do you think whether or not any kind of legislation or sale even goes through, do you think it's a wake-up call for businesses to diversify their social posting based on different platforms?
Yeah, if it hasn't been a wake-up call, your call should have been months ago. Yeah, it's honestly something that should have been on the table as far as you making your digital footprint in every possible different ways you can.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have never been your eggs all in one basket, as TikTok being the example. So with that being said, yeah, it's time to start looking elsewhere and not to say that it's going to go out the window completely, but you should definitely have your business lined up in other avenues aside from just one platform.
One of the tactics I like to suggest to somebody who may not be the right fit for our business, or they may not even have the revenue to support investing in marketing, but maybe they're just starting out, they're a startup. One of the biggest things I like to suggest in terms of social media is getting on at least 4 platforms. Right. That you would ideally encounter your target audience on, or you would be more inclined to actually get on and engage with some of your target audience on. And if you can't be on 4 platforms, on a recurring basis, you do what's called signposting. Let's say you're biggest on Instagram and you like to post your stories or just get reels out there and that's your only form of content. Or maybe you're on Twitter X and that's your thing, right? You only like to put out tweets or whatever they call them now.
Yeah, right.
Maybe that's your thing. You only like to put out that kind of stuff. So signposting is just basically having those, platforms that are branded for your particular business and just saying, hey, this is our business on this platform, but we're usually on this platform, and pointing them to the right place as a tactic I like to recommend. But let's say the ban goes through and you're a business that's been building on TikTok. What would your recommendation be in terms of identifying a new place to put your content, or even converting an existing TikTok audience? Because now it's going to be a weird supply and demand thing, right? You've got a lot of people who used to be on TikTok as consumers who are now having to also find new real estate for what they want to consume. So if you're a business that's built your content on TikTok, what is your suggestion?
I have 2 suggestions. One, reflect and repurpose, right? So reflect on the content that resonates the most, that performs the best. And so however you define that, whether it's most likes, comments, shares, most purchases that directed from that, whatever you want it to be, find the ones that do that and look at them and see what they have in common with other platforms that prioritize those things. And that should be different for the majority of people. But, that might be something as simple as simple but not easy. That's something I always say, because I'll say the word simple all the time, but that doesn't mean that anything's easy. But it's as simple as looking at it and being like, okay, well, so this works really well. You know what? I can move this to Instagram Reels. We can do that. But what I really want to say is DeAndre put me onto this. 1-2 prep. If you know something bad's about to happen, prepare. So if you know that this is something that might happen and your business is solely depending on TikTok, that means you have followers, you have people engaging, create a community. Your community cannot be taken, well, in most cases, your community cannot be taken away from you. And eventually your community will be your highest referral source, your highest purchasing. So instead of being, oh man, we lost it, doesn't matter. Your purchasers and your highest referrers are right here. That's kind of how I feel about a lot of things. I think communities sell.
And I think it's a good opportunity to whether or not you're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, TikTok. Social media is, at the end of the day, a tool. It's not an owned platform by anybody but the actual owners of those platforms. And even those owners, as we're finding out, may not be able to own space in certain geographies, and that can go away, potentially at any moment. So it's on the business owner or the brand to be able to not just facilitate, building an audience, but somehow own that audience in terms of communication mediums, bring them back to their space, their website, newsletter, via email, whatever that looks like. Any thoughts on that?
No, definitely. I think you're 100% correct, man. It's always best to stay versatile because if you're not trying to like expand your network through different platforms, then sad to say you're kind of doing it wrong. You know what I mean? You want to be able to be on most platforms as you can, whether that be just platforms solely for leisure, for networking purposes, just trying to build your brand on anything and everything. Not to say that we're the best at doing that, but we know the importance, and we definitely try to get our clients to realize that as well. So, yeah, it's definitely something that everybody should be doing. Can't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you can't.
So before we close out, Dro, any final thoughts for the audience from a marketing lens or calls to action that you can think of from your angle?
If you can get customers, clients, whatever your end point is, that's awesome, right? But retain them. Always retain them. And especially because that's what I was like, we're talking about communities, we're talking about email newsletters. Always retain them, because no matter what happens, it's cheaper and easier to always go off of people that already exist. Doesn't matter if you have a one-time buy. Retain them. If you have a one-time buy, hey, we're running this, so spread our brand, spread this, spread that. And if you did a good job with that person, you gave them good quality service and all of that good stuff, and they like you and you gave value, they're gonna do it. I know countless people. I know a finance coach, and she ended up getting 30 clients overnight because somebody else had an email newsletter. And that person is an influencer in the finance space, and attached the finance coach in there and was like, hey, she said X, Y, and Z. If you guys would be willing to talk to her, she woke up to 30 new clients. What did she do? The finance coach didn't do anything. And all the influencer did was just utilize a pre-existing audience to create revenue. The revenue is always there. And I know you said like one piece of advice, but the revenue is always there. We don't always have to work hard to get it, though.
Yeah.
But again, simple, not easy.
Customer lifetime value does not just have to be dependent on the one customer, but potentially just the value that you bring them, and then exponentially from their referrals.
Yes.
So very cool. DeAndre, any final thoughts on your end?
I feel like I should leave something, but I feel like we covered everything.
Right on. If you haven't already, we appreciate your engagement and comments on content you'd like us to explore more from a marketing or a business perspective, best marketing practices. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with someone you know would benefit from this episode. And if you're in the marketing space or you're a marketing expert in San Antonio, Texas, or in the area, we'd like you to be a guest on the While Supplies Last, the marketing podcast as well. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on any of your preferred social media platforms that still exist, and DM us. We'll be glad to work with you. Next episode, we'll be interviewing a local San Antonio social media influencer with some interesting insights into social media growth for individuals and brands alike. So don't miss that. We'll catch you next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.